Yeah, we've started to record. Then I'm going to hand over the session to the person who's going to talk or help us understand more about voting. And I think it's Sharon. And also, if you have questions, please feel free to type in the chat. And also later on, we are going to have a Q&A session. So if you can hold on to that time, or if you think you'll forget the questions, then please feel free to use the chat where you can ask any questions. Remember, all questions are welcome. There's no bad or good question. So long as at the end of this session, you all leave here with the correct information. So Sharon, thank you. Welcome. I'm going to also mute myself and hand you the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Serge. Today is an important day, and it's our first session on how maybe immigrants participate in municipal elections. So we also want to welcome Peter, who is from the Ministry of Justice, and he is going to help us navigate the issues around participation of immigrants and also the candidates who are involved. And like Charity has said, feel free to ask your questions in the chat. I'm going to be moderating this event and encourage us that we intervene by raising our hands, and also let's just keep our conversations respectful. And I believe at the end of the day, we want to learn, relearn, and unlearn certain things so that we participate in the local elections effectively. And also this will contribute to deliberative and also participatory democracy at local levels. So without much further ado, I will give maybe Peter the opportunity to just, introduce himself to us. Peter.
Thank you, Sharon. Just a short introduction. First, let me concur with you by saying that I hope this will be a discussion and this will not be Peter talking for an hour and a half on his own. I hope this will be a true discussion that we all contribute. But I am Peter Kariuki from the Ministry of Justice here in Finland. I work in the Department of Democracy and Fundamental Rights. And my main task is not with elections, but my main task is with the Advisory Board for Ethnic Relations, of which I serve as the Secretary General at the moment. Election issues that I am conversant with to some extent. If there are tricky technical questions about elections and the facilitation of elections, I'll easily refer those questions to my colleagues who are in charge of election issues. But with limited knowledge, it's a privilege to be here today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. Let me also thank Think Africa for the opportunity to have this very great, event where we can just interact and discuss, share knowledge, like what Peter is indicating. Let me also hasten to welcome Dennis. Pardon me, because sometimes I might not know how your names are pronounced. So Feven also, we want to welcome Feven, Miriam, Oseminyen, Martha, We also have the great Oma Okello and Sophia and Vim. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope a lot of people will also um, join us today. May I confirm who amongst us may be a part of the candidates who are involved in these upcoming elections? Okay, it seems we don't have a candidate, and we have participants. We hope one or two candidates are going to join us so that we can also learn from them how they are preparing for the participation, and maybe we might also, rally around them and then see how best we can support them to make them win in the coming elections. So, yeah, our first question, of course, I will direct it to Peter, but I'll also give floor to size a point. Let's keep our interventions quite short so that we interact effectively. So our first question would be like, how important is immigrant participation in Finland's municipal? How is that important for local democracy and integration? So I think that is a fundamental question, Peter, which you are free to lead the discussion, or you can give us pointers on how to participate also.
Yeah, let me just respond shortly. First, once again, let me concur and extend thanks to Think Africa for the invitation once again. This is an important discussion, and I'm happy that there is attendance and the session is being recorded so people can refer to this later on. With reference to your question, I don't think we can approach the answer from very many perspectives, but I think if we look at it from a matter of principle, I think the main reason why many of us, and I suspect that many of us have moved to this country from somewhere else, the main reason has been working democratic laws or democratically crafted laws in a nation state where the rule of law works. So those two things can always go hand in hand. Rule of law and democracy go very much hand in hand. So thinking of the reason why we should participate from the perspective of protecting those fundamental principles is very important for all of us, regardless of whether you were born here or you moved here. You have the obligation to protect those two very fundamental principles, democracy and the rule of law. And one of the ways to protect those principles is by participating in elections. And then going directly to the elections themselves, this is an exceptional election in that it's not only, Sharon, I heard you say municipal election. It's not only a municipal election, it's a municipal election and a county council election. So there are two elections in one. And when thinking about the grassroots, these are two very, very important decision-making bodies that are being democratically formulated by the people quite in a short time to come. If we look at the counties, let's look at the municipalities first, because that one has been going on for a long time. The municipalities have got an enormous range of responsibilities. to the population, to the populace, to the residents of that particular municipality. As you know, Finland has got semi-independent, I don't want to use the word autonomous municipalities, but municipalities have got lots of powers and responsibilities to provide services on education, health, employment, integration, so on and so forth. And the highest decision-making body in any municipality is the municipal council that is being formulated after the results of the elections have been tallied. Now, when we go to the counties that were formed not a long time back, since the beginning of 2023, they have, again, enormous responsibilities now that there was a clear division of power in health and social services. What are called well-being services counties have got enormous responsibility when it comes to health, social affairs, and we've got even emergency and rescue services under their responsibility, which are enormous tasks. And the highest decision-making body in well-being services counties are the county councils that are also being formulated after the election results have been tallied. So the reason for participating in the elections is very, very important. If you want to build the principle to protect the principles of democracy, rule of law, and if you want to contribute to the process of good decision making at the municipal and at the county level.
Thank you very much, Peter, and also thank you very much for the clarification on the county elections, which are also critical in fostering a sustainable culture of rule of law and democracy. I thank you very much, and I think rule by law would be a nemesis of rule of law, and then the rule of tyranny would be a nemesis of democracy. And
Yes.
It's incumbent upon us to actually come together and make sure that we protect the two facets of constitutionalism, which are the rule of law and democracy. And I believe Peter has actually clarified it very, clearly in terms of how the municipalities are also involved in various aspects, including making sure that they have some autonomous powers when it comes to defining the direction of local rule of law in terms of health and integration, and also how we call councils like the secretariat of the people, because they are the ones who take notes on the grievances of locals. And in that way, they have to capture whatever the general populace wants to be done, even at national level. So thank you very much for that intervention. I see no reaction in the chat to show that everybody has been satisfied with the way Peter canvassed the aspect on how immigrant participation at municipal and county elections is crucial when it comes to development of local democracy and integration. From Peter's explanation, maybe the next question would be, what are some of the key barriers that immigrants face when trying to engage municipal and county elections in Finland, vis-a-vis the aspects of rule of law and democracy, which you have mentioned, and the two critical bodies like the county and the municipal? To you, Peter, again.
Well, I think I've been in trouble before for answering this question, because I happened to mention not by mistake, but I used the word apathy, but So I'll try and avoid that answering this question or talking about this issue from that perspective. The main challenges we know and that have been researched on to some extent, not very, very extensively, but to some extent, is that especially immigrant participation or people with a migrant background participate quite poorly in elections in general. But then when it comes to municipal elections, where we have more experience because they have been going on for a very long time, and rights to people who are not citizens have been in existence for a very long time, over 30 years, we do know that the participation levels are very low across the board, with a few exceptions now and then. So we're speaking something under 20% participation in municipal elections, statistically, which is very low. So, and the general participatory rate has been between 50 and 60% in municipal elections. So there's reason for concern, and we've been pondering on this question for a long time. Why don't people vote? Well, one of the things we know is, despite many people coming from democratic systems work in very different ways. Some are efficient, some are not, some are transparent, some are not. So people have got varying experiences with how democracy and democratic systems work. And this might somehow influence on how they relate to the democratic system in Finland. But leaving personal experiences aside, we do know that some aspects affect how people gravitate towards democratic processes. One of which is lack of information. They're coming to a country where majority, if not all of the information on elections and participation in such is in Finnish. The language barrier might act as a deterrence for people who want to participate, especially as voters. So majority of the information is in Finnish or Swedish, despite numerous efforts to provide information in numerous other languages. We know that the lack of information is still. And then just general knowledge on why vote, what impact does it have? As I explained in the first question, what do municipal counties do? And now what do county councils do? How is the decision-making process? How is the decision-making process in a county or in a municipality? So sometimes people do not realize or do not grasp the process of decision-making and how things work, and they can't relate to it, and hence it adds maybe to their lack of interest. And then another factor I would raise is maybe unfamiliarity with the political system and political parties. It takes time for someone who has moved into a country to reach a level of societal understanding that they are interested in, unless they're just interested in politics in general. Normally, politics comes later on. The first things are establishing a foundation, finding a house, school for the kids, basic stuff. And then the politics will come later. So it takes time for people to familiarize themselves with the political climate in Finland. And in that sense, it also acts as a deterrent. And then what we see is that hereditary culture of participation. So, for example, we, the first generation migrants, have moved here. Maybe we've been passively participating in local elections or national elections or European elections. And that, say, that hereditary attitude or the hereditary culture of participating in elections, of influencing in society, is not passed to the next generation, so our children. And that also has some impact. So you find that kind of lack of interest is at times pass to the next generation. At times it's the opposite, where you find the first generation is not very active, but the second generation is very, very active. But that's also not consistent. It changes from now and then. So I'd raise those as the main factors. I'm sure many others contribute to this, but those three, I'd raise them as the main factors.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think it comes clearly that at the top of the challenges is a lack of appreciation of the different democratic systems, including Finland's democratic system. And as such, there's a lot of bureaucratic aspects, accompanying. And then, it's difficult for someone to then say, okay, is this system efficient or transparent, especially like you have indicated, when someone also is trying to grapple with the issue of the language barrier, and you do not have information on how to access certain information, maybe in English, in Arabic, if you come from Francophone countries, in French, and in Somali language, for instance, and all these aspects, maybe you come from a Lusophone country or Anglophone African country, or whichever region you're coming from. And like you have indicated also, it appears like the allocation of roles to the municipalities and the counties is turning out to be something like an institutional silos, where maybe people might not know that counties are have a lot to do with well-being, and then someone who is trying to settle into Finland, trying to bring their spouses, trying to make sure that their kids have a school where they can actually go to. It's very true that politics will definitely become something like less prioritized, and it will, like you said, come later on. And also maybe there's something turning out to be, or morphing up to be, intergenerational, where even the first ones to come and maybe the last ones to come are still finding it difficult to vote or participate. And I think, thank you very much for that fundamental aspect. Again, I see no intervention from the chat, and thank you very much for the nuanced analysis of the point. And maybe now that we have explained, the general hindrances, what could be the legal and policy measures, maybe which the Ministry of Justice has implemented to encourage the participation of immigrants in municipal and county elections? Maybe in a way to try and encourage them to participate, or responding to previous researches, or a lack of researches on why immigrants are not maybe participating effectively in both municipal and county elections.
Well, and I really hope that other people will contribute to this discussion, so that it's just not me and Sharon who are exchanging views here. Please feel free to intervene. And I'm sure there are people here who have got vast experience in Finland and based on their lives in Finland over the years. So, okay, let's clarify this. First of all, it's not the responsibility of the Ministry of Justice. It's the responsibility of the government, of the state, to ascertain that its citizens, or those who reside within its boundaries, have the opportunity, first of all, and then the willingness to vote. Some countries have gone up to the extent of making it an obligation. Actually, countries like Switzerland, with sanctions, that you have to vote. So, but we are not there yet. It's still at everyone's volition whether they want to vote or not. But the state, I think, understands and wants to uphold this principle of democracy, and it understands, as is written in the Constitution, that everyone has the right to participate in society, and that right to participate should be protected, and it should be encouraged, and it should be supported. What the Ministry of Justice then has the responsibility to do is to organize the elections, yes, and to provide, as per the law, extensive information on the rights, the opportunities, and the capabilities to vote and to participate in elections. So you'd think that the Ministry of Justice is just the working arm of the state in that sense. Now, many of the problems that I mentioned in the previous part have been identified. And despite being myself a member of that same ministry, we're still trying to put pressure on our colleagues that much more could be done and much more should be done to ascertain that people participate in elections. What the state has done, the state has made sure that the laws are in place. So, based on what the Constitution says, then subsequent laws have been set that extend those rights to participate in elections to people who are not citizens. This is not the case in every country. This is actually, if you think of the countries where we come from, you basically cannot participate in any elections unless you're a citizen. So thinking that the right of residence in a municipality gives you, of course with certain conditions, gives you the right to vote in elections is actually quite a good thing, quite a positive thing. Now, what the Ministry of Justice does is it provides general information in numerous amounts of languages. I don't know whether you have visited the website Valid Pista Fee. There's an enormous array of languages, of information, an enormous array of information in very many languages on elections and election rights, how to vote, and so on and so forth. And then there are other channels that are used, be they electronic or internet channels or mass media channels, radio, TV, to spread out information on upcoming elections and the like. But the main task of the ministry, of course, is to organize the elections. And that is not an easy task, I can tell you that. Organizing elections is very challenging. And actually, maybe I can reveal this to the general public. Finland is an exceptional country in that Finland's election team in the Ministry of Justice has got less than 10 people. And they managed to execute one of the most efficient elections in the world. I don't know, maybe this might be a small disadvantage because it means that with that such small resources, the extensive informational campaigns and the extensive encouraging campaigns that are needed to get as many people to vote, maybe they are not resourced as they should be, but maybe that's also not the focus. The focus is to assure that the elections are as efficient, as transparent, and as well organized as possible. The Ministry of Justice, and especially in collaboration with ETNO, the advisory board that I am working with, we have provided different kinds of how would I describe? Maybe a pictured, more graphic material, informative material on voting and elections in many languages. But this has been sporadic. It has not been consistent from one election to the other. And the reason for this is that the advisory board is not responsible for the elections. We are an advisory board. So actually an advisory board providing information for elections is somehow out of place. It's the responsibility of the ministry that is the working arm of the state to execute, inform, and carry out the elections. So in that sense, the best that we can do is to encourage the ministry to expand the information and the general know-how and the encouragement to different population groups, especially now because we know Finland's population is increasing basically only because of migration. So as the population diversifies, there will be need to provide more diverse, more multilingual information to encourage people to vote. I've spoken for too long, so but the ministry is trying its best, but there's still much more to do.
Indeed, yeah, there's still much more to do, and like you have said, much more could be done, and much more should be done. Maybe we can also add that much more must be done. And like Dennis actually asked the question, of course, Peter or any other person can also respond. I also understand that we may treat carefully on some of the aspects. So Dennis' concern is that could it be that one issue affecting immigrant participation in the electoral processes is that people are not engaged politically outside of elections? Maybe we can say outside of the electoral cycle. Maybe people actually want to be participating during or maybe towards, but after the electoral cycle, maybe they are no longer participating. And she's also arguing that maybe it becomes tricky to develop an understanding of electoral policies, the platforms, and maybe candidates without longer term engagement in politics, in her opinion. I don't know, Peter, what's your take on that one, vis-a-vis the electoral cycle and the current verve when it comes to, the participation of people towards the election or during the electoral cycle, which has already started? Maybe people, they say, okay, after the election, we see posters disappearing from buses. We see people, forgetting. It's like a morning after event, and then people are like, they no longer care. So what would be your take on that aspect?
Yeah, I think Dennis is spot on that. I think that is very true. Yeah. And like some of us who come from countries where you basically live from one election cycle to the next, as soon as one ends, the campaigning starts for the next one, despite being 4 or 5 year periods in between. In Finland, it's a bit different. It's once the elections are over, the votes are tallied, the results are out, life stops, voting life stops, and then and then we wait for the next cycle. And as you can see, the elections are in under actually how many days? 20 days, and we are having this discussion now. So these are discussions that should have been had a long time from now. So a good example would actually be that after this next month's election, the next election is going to be in 2027, in April of 2020. So it's going to be a long break, another 2 years before we discuss elections. So that's absolutely spot on. But of course, some people do follow party politics in between. Some people are actually, recently people have been following what the government has been doing with different measures, especially vis-a-vis migrants and their rights and their opportunities. So people are conversant with, to some extent, with what is going on in politics, but the elections seem to live a life of their own, and people wake up towards elections or to elections maybe 2-3 months before things start happening. And that's a problem because people are then not engaged. You have to like wake people up and get them engaged.
Many things. And thank you also, Miriam. Actually, she made a critical intervention, and she's indicating that indeed a lot of events and engagement activities do happen few months before the election, which is not a lot of time for people behaviors to change, especially the aspect of voter apathy and even maybe failure to recognize the candidates and other electoral aspects that are so critical for them to participate. And also, thank you, Denise, for the critical intervention again, which maybe Peter, you might quickly comment, because the concern is that perhaps the ministry can fill those gaps between elections, although she understands that their resources may be limited vis-a-vis what you were talking about. Those women may be less than 10 people. And also, we do admit that even though maybe few people are involved, they are actually doing a very good job of ensuring that, the municipalities, I don't know how many, and the counties, I don't know again how many, do have their elections efficiently and transparently. So maybe could you quickly and in sweeping form maybe just indicate to us within the 2-year cycle, is it possible that we can also engage after the electoral cycle, although immediately after the electoral cycle, we are again into another electoral cycle, although not officially so?
Well, I think just as I placed responsibility on the ministry, and I think that's true, there's limited resources, yes. The principle of democracy is very important, and it's sung in basically all government policies and principles, but the resources allocated to democracy and the expansion of democratic rights is, in my opinion, not enough. Could be more resources for that. But just as I placed responsibility on the ministries, I also place responsibilities, as it's said in the comments, on political parties. There's nothing I can, I have no opinion on what political party to choose or to go for. But I think political parties also have the opportunity to engage the electorate far much more earlier. But it could also be a matter of resources. It could be a strategic reason, or for strategic reasons. Political parties are very quiet in engaging the populace, in engaging potential voters, because I think the migrant population is an enormous population, is an enormous voter group that can be far much more engaged in that sense. And then I'll also challenge the NGOs. I'll challenge Think Africa to upkeep this discussion after the election. So this brilliant idea to have this discussion came to me in short notice. I accepted it, but these discussions could be had at other points in time. They don't have to wait for elections in order to. So I think we all have a responsibility, not just the ministry, but also the political parties and NGOs. And ultimately, as you know, this individualistic societies, the onus is on everyone. It's your responsibility also to know, to find out, and to participate. Somebody wants to say something.
Yes, it's me. Thank you, Peter, for these great insights and for making the time to come and share your insights with us, even though you said it was on short notice. Really appreciate that. At the beginning of the session, you mentioned that different people have different experiences of democracy. So we're coming from different regions, different parts of the world, and democracy works in various ways in different places. Could one reason for the poor voter turnout among the immigrant community have to do with the fact that sometimes people don't see their vote as making a difference? That the experience of democracy may have been such that, they don't think that their vote matters. And so, and this is not something that's limited to countries outside of Europe or other countries. I'm saying that it's something that's also present in Europe and in Finland, that voter apathy is sometimes very closely linked to a perception that my vote doesn't make a difference, so therefore it won't matter if I withhold it.
Yeah, if I may respond, Sharon, directly, I think that's an excellent observation, and it's very true, which is actually quite well known, that one of the reasons for voter apathy is the sense of desperation, that you don't see the significance of your vote and your voting, because you don't see the direct implications of the results in maybe something that you find interesting. A good example would be, for example, the city of Vanta, which is the city where I reside in, is planning to build a tram network, which is going to be very costly. But then that final decision on how to go about that process will be determined by the next municipal council, which will be elected next month. And the political parties in the municipal council have got very varying views on the construction of that tram network. So if I am, for example, keen on having decisions go one way or the other, I think that it would be good for me to be involved and to familiarize myself with what political parties are taking what positions on this particular issue. And in that sense, cast my vote based on what I want to be the outcome of that decision-making process. So sometimes it is that I vote and I don't understand or don't see where the implications of my vote end up. But in other cases, it's also, as I mentioned, just a lack of understanding of why am I participating in this vote. So one of the reasons why we find people participate more in elections as voters or as candidates is because people become more gravitated to certain social issues. I have children. I want my children to go to a good school, or I want my children or my family to be provided with good health, social welfare services. And that pushes me either to vote, or it pushes me even as a candidate to push a certain political agenda in order to make sure that these things are pushed forward. So that attachment to a certain social issue and an understanding of a certain social issue is what triggers people to be more involved. But Denise, what you said is very true, and sorry for the long answer. This is a problem that's been observed in many other population groups. So one of the most problematic population groups actually we have is the youth. And I'm not speaking of youth with migrant, but I'm speaking of youth of Finnish descent. Their election participation is also very low. And the question is why? And one of the reasons is that they don't understand what implication or what significance their vote has got on day-to-day issues. They don't see, they don't relate to the outcomes. And other minority groups, there are certain groups that are just not keen to participate in elections. A 50% election participation rate of 55% is not very good. But I don't want to speak too long on that, but there's just my 2 cents on what you said.
Yeah, thank you very much for the critical interventions. That it's like where I come from Zimbabwe, we say palms wash each other. So in other words, you cannot just say, okay, I blame this one hand for this. You have to make sure that all the hands are cleaning each other. And someone has said political parties have a role to play. I think it's Dennis again. Do we have any representative from political parties? Before I give Dennis the permission to speak, she's saying she actually needs some permission to speak on.
No, I'm sorry.
Did she
sorry,
speak already?
I spoke already. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Could I ascertain if we have any representative from political parties? We might not have recognized you, but we would love to thank you if you are here, and maybe we might ask you one or two questions without castigating or casting aspersions on your political party. Yeah, it seems we don't have a representative or someone maybe aligned with political parties, or maybe again, it might be something difficult to show. So, to you, Peter, how does the ministry actually ensure that immigrant communities are aware of their voting rights and the electoral processes vis-a-vis what you were explaining in the first question to say, in the second question to say, okay, we have municipal elections, including the highest decision-making board, which is the municipal council, and the same well-being centers in the counties and the county council. What is it that the ministry is doing? It might be age for attainment, it might be critical institutional policies. What is it that the ministry, although it works with other stakeholders, what is it doing to ensure that immigrant communities are aware of their voting rights in the two important institutions?
Well, as I said earlier, the ministry provides actually an extensive information database. I'm going to link it actually, let me open the English page, front page. I'm going to put it in the chat so everybody can go and look at that page. So that's the main source of information. I don't know whether the state or the municipality still sends letters home. I don't know, maybe people can comment in the chat section whether you still get a letter home telling you of your rights to vote. And there's information on various languages. At least before, long before, before I became a citizen, I used to get an envelope with information on my rights to vote and so on. Yeah, so yes, we do. I received the letter. Yeah, so everybody who has the right to vote receives a letter home. So still, and I'm sure if you go to the government's pages, the ministry's pages, I'm sure there'll be something on YLE or the Swedish version of YLE informing on upcoming elections. The state does, it's quite risky to say, in my opinion, the bare minimum. It makes sure that everyone who has the right to vote is told that you have the right to vote. And it provides general information through what better than the internet on the rights to vote, information on the elections in many, many languages, which is very good. But in reality, we do know that more could be done. More could be done. And the ministry actually does, upon request, and depending on the availability of resources and time, they do arrange info sessions, as was mentioned, that we are arranging one in Basic Finnish. I think it's on the 20th, if I remember correctly, or 21st. So upon request, I have made myself available today as a representative of the ministry. So we also work with NGOs on informational campaigns. Many NGOs in many municipalities do that under their own interest. They arrange info sessions, discussion sessions, coffee sessions. They invite candidates. So you can actually see them on Facebook and different social media platforms that they're arranging different events. But the state does, within the parameters of the law, what it should do. Inform everybody who has the right to vote. And then, as I said, the main task is in organizing the elections. And that's not an easy task. I'm not going to lie. That's a very, very challenging task. So the little lesser resources are left for this informative work. But with more resources and with more partnerships with NGOs and other actors, then it would be possible. And then the municipalities themselves could maybe encourage their citizens in one way or the other, but municipalities have got very limited roles in that. So the political parties take another huge role in that, recruiting candidates, informing people, galvanizing their volunteers and all that. So in that sense, there's this extensive action from the ministry, but still lots of room, repetition. I think Miriam wants to add something.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe a quick follow-up to your critical interventions was like, maybe could you take it up, or maybe could we take it as a future point of engagement? Because the concern was the letters don't really explain the importance of your voting.
Yes.
They simplify maybe the electoral aspect. Maybe could they be so expressive that citizens and maybe those on their way to becoming citizens, or those also residents or immigrants, should take the importance of their voting, or maybe we'll be asking too far, or maybe the state feels like they cannot go for the low-hanging fruit. I'm not very sure. Peter, maybe you could, in 1 or 2 minutes, comment on that aspect.
Yeah, that's the same criticism that we have received, and it's the same criticism that we have relayed, and that has gone directly to our election state election officials, that the letters are too square. They're just too square. They're just done sentences, and then people don't have that time to read those kinds of letters. But hopefully, people do have that time. There's very important information there on the elections. So, excuse me, I have to cut the line. But yes, there has been appeals. Like, we need more robust. We need more maybe pictographic information to let people know. We need to use different channels. We need to use social media. We need to collaborate more with NGOs. We need to finance NGOs in building the momentum and so on and so on. But let's hope things will be better in future.
Indeed, thank you. We believe even Rome, they say it was not built in one day. We hope, since it is actually a point or an action point that has been taken, one day maybe the ministry would also take that point on board and address it. So maybe our questions, next question, if there are no interventions.
Miriam wanted to say something. Miriam has her hands up. She has had it for some time.
Okay, Miriam.
Thanks, Sharon and Peter as well. There were two things. Maybe to comment on the last thing about the letters. I've been receiving that letter, but I know the content. I know I just open it and I just find the address. I don't even like read it, but I just use it to find the address, and then the other information I find online. But I think maybe it has to stay in the times we're in, where a lot of the content is on social media or in this kind of bite-sized information. You just have a few seconds where you're either catching people, or then you have this kind of more long, in-depth interviews like these podcasts that are even 2 hours long have been doing quite well. So kind of like maybe identifying the trends of how people are receiving information nowadays and then adapting to that. And then, as we have mentioned, not just during the election cycle, but even throughout the year, how do you continuously then use this TikTok style or Instagram style, or then even this long form interviews, but kind of like this continuous engagement for people to really understand what parties stand for, who the candidates are, and then as well as what it means in a short way. Like sometimes people also want answers, like what does this mean, and then what do I do, and rather than having to search for the information. But I think if no one else maybe had a comment on that, I wanted to ask, like, what exactly are the changes now to the municipalities? Like, I was reading that they are now responsible for, is it employment and integration as it relates to also immigrants? Could you shed a little bit more light on that, what it actually means, and why we should be paying attention to it, even that?
Thank you so much. Thanks for the question. First, let me respond to the first part, because I don't know whether you conscientiously made a very, very good observation. I mentioned what the ministry does from the government side. And then you also mentioned about people becoming more familiar with the political climate, the parties, what they stand for, what they do. So the government, by sending this letter, does what the government does. It informs you, hey, Miriam or Sharon or whoever else, you have the right to vote in these elections. The election day will be on this date. You can vote beforehand from this date to this date, blah, blah, blah. Just very practical information on your rights, where you should go to vote, and so on and so forth. Now, the big challenge here comes in that the state is totally independent or is totally neutral on political party ideologies, ideas, affiliations, and what and so. So the state cannot tell you this is the Finnish Communist Party, or this is the Finnish Christian Democratic Party, or the state cannot, in its neutrality, tell you anything about the parties. And that is where the problem comes, because it remains it opens a question, who then should tell the electorate about the political parties, or the parties themselves should tell the electorate about themselves. But when the parties themselves fail to identify themselves to the electorate, then it leaves a big gap to the potential electorate. Okay, whom do I vote for? What does this party stand for? Or I hear those are the bad guys. Or I hear these are the good guys. I hear those guys are too liberal. I hear these guys are too conservative. So in that situation, we are a bit in a limbo, because the ministry will not take that responsibility. And that's why actually I'm very, very cautious even in these discussions, because I find it a bit difficult to be in the same discussion with people from different political parties. They have their political agendas to push forth. I have this neutral agenda where I'm just giving general information on the elections. So let's just clarify that. And then when it comes to this new question of the municipal responsibilities, actually a lot has happened in the last few years, and a lot is going to happen in the coming years. One of the main changes that has happened in integration policy is that the responsibilities of integration policy administration have been moved from regional government to the municipalities. So before 2020, actually the beginning of this year, when the new Integration Act came into law or into force, the responsibility of integration services and the responsibility of employment services were under the auspices of the Centers for the Environment, Transport, the Economy, Transport, and the Environment, or what you call ELU centers, ELU-keskukset. And with this new law, those responsibilities of integration and employment were moved under the new Integration Act to the municipalities. So before, where you had what you call employment offices that were run by regional government. Now they are being run by the municipalities. So you'll find municipalities have got lots of responsibilities when it comes to integration services, integration training, language training, and also employment services. It's like bringing the services closer to the people, closer by putting them in the municipalities. And this is a significant change in the sense that the municipal councils have got a lot of responsibility now, in addition to what they had before, education, so on and so on and so forth, infrastructure and the like. So you have now two very important policy areas: integration of new migrants into society, regardless of or depending on what reasons for migration are, and then employment services in general, and how this is linked to social and welfare services or benefits as regulated by the state. So thanks for the question. I tried to answer as shortly as possible. But
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Miriam. Allow me to also welcome NK. I'm not sure about the actual names. And also Teresia and Wanjiru. Thank you very much for joining this important discussion. And I might ask you to also maybe ask some questions if you feel you can ask. And I also see that
there's actually a very good question on billboards from Oma.
From Oma, that you know, there are billboards of candidates that are participating in the elections in many parts of different public places, including maybe buses. So yeah, this is part of government's public information. Could you comment if
no, it's not. It's not. That was actually a good observation, Ouma. And it's Ouma, by the way, a name from the country where I hail from. I saw also Wanjiru, another name that hails from the country that I hail from. So when you see those billboards, be they on the streets, be they in the bus, tram, metro, wherever you see them, normally that is at the expense of the candidate. When you see billboards where there are numerous candidates at the same time, normally that is at the expense of the party. And not just the party, it could be that it's at the expense of the party party association of that municipality. So the parties are divided into municipalities. So if you have the National Coalition Party, it's got different associations in the different municipalities. So be the money coming from the central party or from the municipal association of the party itself, they fund those what you call joint billboards where they have their candidates listed and their numbers and so on. But if you see individual billboards of particular individual candidates, those are funded by individuals. So it's not a free bus ride. It's actually elections and campaigning, as you all might know, are very expensive processes. So people, in that sense, it's not also very egalitarian. It's not very equal. People with more resources have more resources to finance their campaigns, and people who don't have, then they might either fundraise or call for support. But that has got nothing to do with the government. The government just monitors the transparency of fundraising and election funding. But that is also as mandated by law, and especially by Parliament. It has to be transparent funding so that interest groups don't influence the outcomes of democratic elections. So just to answer your question, Uma, it's party or candidates that fund the billboards.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Maybe we can just say maybe Foley's is it a subsidiary company of the municipality? Because it's also flexible enough to accept candidates to publicize their candidature, maybe on municipal related public transport, and in a way it also shows how maybe a government institution is prepared to work in partnership with different candidates who want to publicize their candidature. Could it be that? Or
Which
what's the status
which
of
body did you ask? Which body? I missed the very first part. Which body are you talking about?
No, I'm saying folly buses normally display the candidature of
the public transport
different.
buses.
Yeah, so I was like saying, is folly a subsidiary of the municipality of Tuku and other related municipalities? And could we say that government institutions in Finland are flexible enough to actually accept or to allow political parties from different multi-political parties to actually like work in partnership?
The public transport companies are independent companies. They're normally privately owned.
Okay.
They're privately owned. They've got nothing to do with the government. The municipality might subsidize, or a group of municipalities might subsidize public transport as part of public goods that they provide. But the companies themselves are independent, and the advertisement rights that they sell, they are totally independent. They are not related anyhow to the municipality. Some buses, some public transport systems provide public advertising, some don't. So it's got nothing to do with the government or the municipality. It just depends on the company and the services that it provides. There's no collaboration at all with the municipality or the central government with public transport companies.
Okay, no, thank you very much for clarifying. And also thank you, Miriam, for flagging out aspect like what Peter was discussing. You indicate that maybe we can also even one day have a discussion on the impact of funding on candidates and political parties. I think we can actually build on that and get a lot of information maybe before the actual elections. And thank you, Teresa, also for the intervention that the ad sold by advertising companies, and maybe Foley is not selling those. Could you clarify on that aspect?
Maybe I don't know whether Teresia wants to say herself, but so if you have a bus, Sharon, if you have a bus, an advertising company can buy a space in your bus. It can can place a screen, or you can rent the back of your seat in your bus to an advertising company. So a political party, a company, or whoever interested individual wants to buy advertising space, then approaches the advertising company. They don't approach the bus company, they approach the advertising company. And the advertising company that has leased the space in your bus will sell that space to the person who is interested in buying that. I don't know whether you get it. It's just like in a shop.
Yes, you put it pithy and it's very clear. Thank you very much. Maybe our next question would be, what challenges have been identified, maybe by way of research or through institutional surveys, or maybe through field observation for immigrant candidates in local elections, and how is the ministry working to address them?
Yeah, well, based on my clarification, the ministry is not going to. The only thing that we can address is the equality of opportunities. The equality of opportunities in the sense that people who have the right to stand as candidates should be provided with the equal opportunity to stand as candidates. So parties should not favor people from, or discriminate against people from particular groups. And this is totally based on the Equality Act. So in that sense, So that's the first part. So the ministry, if there is complaints of discrimination in the possibilities for people with the rights to stand as candidates, the ministry has the right to look into that. If there are problems or any form of discrimination against candidates in the process of maybe allocating candidate numbers to potential candidates, that is something that the ministry can look into. And of course, the second aspect is candidate security. That is also part of the responsibilities of the state. So if there is any form of threats, any forms of be it discriminatory or abusive language or anything of that sense, then in that case, the state can intervene. And thirdly is the provision of information to a candidate's rights that are enshrined in law. So the law does provide the guidelines for what a candidate should, a candidate with rights should have, and what qualifies as those rights. So when those are anyhow infringed or not observed, then the state can also intervene with that. But then the largest responsibility with the recruitment, the training, the supporting, be it the mentoring before, during, and after the elections is with the political party. So it depends on what the political party's interests are and what they're trying to do. They try to encourage people, to recruit people as candidates if they see you as fit. But that is outside of the realm of the state, of the government. There's nothing we can do about that.
Okay, thank you very much for that salient observation. It's quite clear. This maybe takes us to our last question. Of course, members are free to also ask questions, but our last question relates to the reforms or upcoming initiatives related to all the aspects we were discussing. So maybe, are there any reforms or upcoming initiatives aimed at increasing voter turnout among immigrant communities?
Yes. Well, the current government.
Maybe as you answer that, can also members spare a few minutes of their time and give us feedback on the session, on the link that has been posted in the chat. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you. And now this is where the fatherly duties come. I have to open the door for my son, so I'll be right back. Give me 20 seconds.
Thank you. No, it's okay. So the other colleagues, could you please spare a few minutes of your time and provide some feedback on the session, on the link that has been provided in the chat box? We would be very much grateful to hear from you and to see the points of engagement where we can also engage further in the future.
Yeah, sorry, you might hear background noise. I have my children finally coming home from their hobbies, so it's actually perfect time. We are nearing the end of this discussion. But to answer your question, this current government that started in 2023 has set in its goals to draft a democracy policy action plan. And in that action plan, they have identified some of the things that we have raised here, that much more needs to be done to raise the awareness of people with migrant backgrounds and other minority groups or other marginalized groups from elections to participate more. And at the moment, we're in the process of now drafting the concrete measures that need to be taken, some of which I have mentioned here. So we need far much more robust and diverse informative methods to engage. We need to work more with our NGOs. We need to keep up the momentum between elections and not resort to the same cycle of engaging people in elections a few months before voting. So most of the measures that I mentioned earlier during our discussion, I hope that they are going to be observed. But the main challenge is that because the government program is being set up now, in the middle of this governmental period, the resources that are allocated to this are not enough. So we need a discussion on resources. This cannot be done. Democracy cannot be protected for free. Democracy costs, and it needs to be upheld with money. So let's hope that this government will commit itself to providing enough resources for the active engagement of people in elections and democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we put some reactions in the chat on our important guest and the responses that he gave, which I believe were very apt and salient, and they helped us, see light, and also we can use them as critical stepping stones in building bridges. You can put your reactions like in the chat. I've put some reactions. I think you can see them, and members are free to put all the reactions in the chat while we thank Peter from the
Miriam
ministry.
has her hand up.
Yes, Miriam, you can.
Yes, and I just wanted to say that it was also actually an enlightening session in understanding also the limitations the ministries and government have in engaging people, which also places a lot of importance on NGOs. So I think maybe as Think Africa members here, we also realize the the responsibility we carry, and I hope also in terms of resources, this also there's sort of guidance also on where we could access these resources so that we could also provide or engage the communities even better and through the year round. Yeah. I'm campaigning now for the organization.
Yes, good campaign. Good campaign. Very good campaign. Actually, let me just add on to that and say that there's a big gap in the NGO sector for active NGOs that are, let's say, democracy trailblazers. At the moment, your umbrella organization, Moni Heli, seems to be the only one or the main one. But we need NGOs that are the spearheads of this democracy campaign. And there's enormous potential and enormous gaps to be filled, whether it comes to project funding, whether it comes to partnerships with state or at EU level. The opportunities are quite many. So the ball is on your court. The state will do what it needs to do, and it's doing what it needs to do. But the possibility to expand and extend this campaign is very much in the NGO's hands.
Thank you very much. We reserved the best wine at the end of the meeting, and thank you to Titilayo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You also joined us, and once again, thank you very much. Peter, for availing yourself upon request, like you have indicated that availing yourself is one such critical engagement which the Ministry of Justice is doing. And of course, there are various other ways they can also use to engage. And we give you a bum bum even remotely, wherever you are. And thank you also for, leaving all your critical and maybe difficult schedules and coming to us, including looking after the young ones who are enjoying their hobbies, and you also are taking time in multitasking and someone who engages with important pillars of society, including Think Africa. We thank you very much. Let me also thank the participants, and also we have Miriam, Dennis, Vivian, Ouma, Wanjiru, NK, Teresia, and Titilayo. Thank you very much for coming to this very important event and making sure that we had beautiful engagements, and the discourse and deliberations were so much live and interactive. I feel honored to be part of this. Maybe I will give the chance to Cheryl share some housekeeping issues. Thank you, everyone, once again. I hope to meet you in the next session.
Thank you so much, too.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much, Peter, for availing your time. We do not take it for granted that we know you are very busy.
Thank you, Izan.
So thank you. And also thank you, Sharon, for facilitating this session. Most of the times I'm the one doing that, but today I took a break. Thank you. It's nice for a few sessions to be listening in. Thank you. And yes, it was very informative as I got the documents, the letter, and now I know what to do. I'm planning to vote, so it was very informative. And this is the first part of this session. We are going to have a second one next month. So if you are not in the Think Africa WhatsApp group, you can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I don't think we are on X, but every other social media, and TikTok, but every other social media you can find us, then you will get to see when we announce the next event and the next date. And also, if you want to join Think Africa, you can, on the Think Africa webpage, there's a form where you can fill if you want to join and be a member. There are so many benefits you can get. You can get to have community and networking. But so feel free to join us. And I want to also thank everybody for sparing their time and showing up and asking questions. And without much further ado, if you want to watch the replay of this session, it's going to be on YouTube. So you can type Think Africa, you'll find our page on YouTube. We have this video, and we also have our previous session, so you can peruse and enjoy some of the videos. So thank you all and have a beautiful night, and I wish you all the best and enjoy your week. Enjoy your week.
Thank you very much, everyone. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Thank you, Cherry. That was good. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.